We represent transit workers all across the country, actually in Canada as well, bus and light rail and subway employees, both on the maintenance and the operator side. So my point here is to try to bring a national perspective to some of the discussions that you're having here today. Of course, Local 689 is one of our largest locals in the United States, and we fully support this piece of legislation. We urge the Council to pass it as soon as possible. I wanted to make briefly five points. As President Jeter has stated already, due to the nature of their employment, transit workers dealing with the fare box issues, complaints, working alone, working late, regulations, are obviously vulnerable to some horrific attacks. And these crimes range, I'm sure you'll hear from others, that from simple assaults to throwing objects at buses to, I'm talking about rocks and bowling balls in some cases. There was actually one case of that, to brutal sexual offenses. And it is, the second point is, it's really appropriate that Washington, D.C. take the lead on this rather than Maryland or Virginia, because the fact is that more these issues come up here in the D.C. There are more events here in D.C. Than there are in the other two jurisdictions, far more assaults here than the other two places. And the statistics are alarming. They're, simple assaults, they went up 52% from 2003 to 2004. I've seen WMATA's testimony indicating that the 2006 numbers are even more alarming, according to the police statistics. Third, transit workers should be treated differently. A lot of times when we hear about these types of laws being proposed in other states, we get the argument from the other side saying, well, an assault's an assault. You shouldn't be treating one person differently than another person. Well, in this case, we respectfully disagree, because when there's an assault on a transit worker, especially a bus driver, you're putting not only that person at risk, but everybody on that bus at risk, everybody outside the vehicle. This is a serious business, and obviously we want to be able to protect not only the people driving the bus, but also the public at large as well. Fourth, you might have heard about the Federal Patriot Act, and obviously there's a lot of negatives that brings up in a lot of people's minds. But for us, there was one very good provision of the Patriot Act, which actually we lobbied for many years, even before 9/11, which actually allows for a 20-year jail sentence for assaulting a transit worker. That's great, but the problem is that the feds don't enforce it. They always put the burden on the states and localities to enforce the law, and therefore we have been lobbying the states, and we've gotten attached to my testimony. I appreciate if the entire thing be entered into the record. You'll see a number of different state provisions in there, a big chart which tells about the laws in the other states. I would especially note the New York law happens to be a great law that was passed just recently. We lobbied for that. As Jackie had said, it covers not only bus operators, but train operators, ticket dispensers, station agents. Station agents is a key thing, because those people are in the same place all the time. You know where to find them. Another approach is to simply increase penalties if the assault takes place in a transit vehicle or on a transit station. That way you cover everybody. The last thing is that there are other measures that can be taken in addition to increasing the penalties. One is cameras. Local 689 has been leading the way on that. Obviously, law enforcement is another issue. Of course, these things may cost some money, but nevertheless, it's important. New York, for instance, passed a law recently that encourages off-duty police officers to ride transit by allowing them to ride for free. I don't know what WMATA's policy is on that. Some minimal cost things. Notice in Illinois, there's a big sign on the Chicago Transit Authority buses that say it's against the law to assault a transit worker. And we think that goes a long way. And finally, last thing, in Montgomery County in 2004, they passed a law that allows people to banish people from buses if they're acting in a disruptive manner. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today.